It's always
I hear you,
by
man.
the, it's always just by the seat of my pants the whole time.
Evening, folks.
You ready?
Ready.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, July 18th, 2022, 7 p.m. Bear, Briggs,
Present.
Coulter,
Here.
Hydrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Here.
Patke,
Here.
Reed,
You bet.
Wessels. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated July 5th, 2022? Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Reed.
You bet.
I need a
Need a motion?
Need a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second one.
Who's first?
Joe,
I'm second.
thank you.
Sorry, you guys. Sorry, Sherry. I should keep better track of that. Motion passes. So
Rookie mistake.
the agenda is approved.
Approval and adjustment of agenda.
Okay. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
By Patke, second by Coulter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments and reappointments, police department appointment.
Jim?
Chief, good evening.
Good evening,
Good
council.
evening.
Yeah, the new guy.
Changed.
I have a fine young man, Matthew, come on up. I'd like to introduce to you. Matthew, well, I guess you don't currently work there, where you have been working at Bryn Jewelry for 5 years, so he knows the area. Oh, good, here to support you, awesome. His bachelor's degree from Central Methodist in business management. He is a graduate of the Jefferson County Law Enforcement Academy, so he has his post-certification, and he wants to come join our police department. So I submit him for recommendation for a police officer.
Okay. Questions?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Reed. Hydrich.
No,
Sorry.
Hydrich.
Hydrich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. By your motion, you are hired, sir.
Congrats.
I like that.
No, so you could say something.
Please.
Sure.
I realized halfway through police academy I didn't really want to be a police officer anymore. I want to be a police officer in Washington, not just a police officer. So this is kind of the only place I want to be, and it's kind of silly. My wife makes fun of me for it, but I set my homepage to washmo.gov so that I could check every single time I turn on the computer, are they hiring? So I'm just really happy to be here.
Welcome, sir.
Good for you. Welcome. Welcome.
All right.
Police department reappointment.
Jim?
So, council, in your package, you have a letter from me recommending Eric Dobelman, detective, for reappointment. He has performed admirably, and I suggest recommend that he be reappointed.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Hydrich, second by Patke. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Eric Dobelman is rehired by the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Public hearings, a special use permit 321 West 6th Street.
Who is,
Sal's gonna brief.
Sal's going to brief. Okay.
All right, good evening, council. Your first public hearing tonight is a request for a short-term lodging special use permit at 321 West 6th Street. It's right here in the center of the block, right behind Cedar Crest, accessing 6th Street, but also has alley access to the rear that goes behind Cedar Crest. It is zoned R2 overlay, which does allow for single family and two family. You can see here is kind of directly outside of our Downtown district, this lighter blue is our C3 downtown district, and then this darker blue is actually the C2 overlay, which covers our 5th Street corridor. So they're requesting to have the short-term lodging, which allows for renters 30 days and less. You can see here in the aerial, they do have street parking for at least 2 spaces, 3 if there's no blocking on either lot, east and west, as well as in the turnaround here to the rear. So they do have ample parking. This went to planning and zoning last week, and they voted unanimously to approve the motion for a special use permit. Staff also agrees with that recommendation of approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, folks?
By the way, there was no neighbors or anything contesting or anything there that night.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Make a motion to accept into the minute.
Nope. Hold on. Public hearing.
Oh, excuse me.
folks in the audience, any comments? Are the owners here tonight? Would you like to speak, sir? Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Tom Knott. My wife, Kim, sitting back here with me. We came to the city of Washington just to see what we could see up here, and you guys have a lot of business up here, and looks like a good downtown district you guys have, so we decided to want to be a little bit a part of it. We found this house. We thought it was in the downtown district, but my mistake, I bought it before knowing exactly where it was, so I just want to introduce ourselves and let you know that, we're planning on being part of the community and making sure everything goes how it should, and we won't have any problems with it. So, you make any questions for me?
No?
Nope.
I'm good.
Thanks for being here.
All right, we appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have some neighbors here, right here, that did come by that we've talked to quite a bit, so if you got any questions.
Is this the grass cutter?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? No comments? Okay.
Mayor, if I would.
Go ahead, John.
The property there are relatively close to that. We've had some complaints regarding parking in that alley in the past.
We have.
And I'm not sure, I don't recall exactly where or who was at cause for that parking. I believe it might have been the employees of Cedar Crest at the time. So it's helpful that they have this turnaround driveway at that location. So just as a positive, just FYI, if you recall some issues in the past, it seems like it's mitigated with that layout.
Those concerns and complaints, John, were the house on the western end of the block facing 6th Street there,
Yeah.
at the corner of 6th and Cedar.
And I wasn't necessarily meaning this property. I was saying it was
Right.
good that they do have the turnaround drive, so.
Okay. Other comments or concerns from the council? I'll entertain a motion.
If not, I'll make my motion.
Pat Key, second by Holtmeyer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. By your vote, the motion passes. Welcome.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 321 West 6th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Holtmeyer. Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. I'll, roll call. That's right.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 321 West 6th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Okay. By your vote, the motion passes. Welcome, you guys.
Rezoning 2188, 2180, and 2172 Highway A from R1A Single Family Residential to M2 Heavy Industrial.
Yes, this next request is for a rezoning for these 3 parcels along Highway A. You can see here, they are all owned by the same property owner, the applicant that turned in the request for the rezoning. Actually, the southernmost parcel, these are the original lots from I would assume in the 80s when we adopted our zoning code, and these were residential at the time. You can see on the southern portion, it has actually, that storage use has crept into that lot. And then there are 2 residential lots to the north. See here in the zoning, it is completely surrounded by M2 heavy industrial. On this piece, they're actually used, this aerial shows 2 homes there. The northern one has actually been demolished, and the applicant has said their plan is to not reoccupy the second home, and they will demolish that as well. No plans to build anything right now. It's just to kind of clean up the zoning. They own the property adjacent as well to the south, and so they're wishing to just have this all be the same zoning district. Planning and zoning reviewed this last week. No issues. They voted unanimously in approval, and we did not hear any concerns from any neighbors. So,
Plans are to,
just to clean it up right now. They don't have any
Okay.
plans to build it. If they were, they'll have to come in for a site plan at staff level, make sure it meets all access requirements and that sort of thing.
And Sal, just for them, with those are existing lot lines that are shown on the. on
Correct.
this. So they would probably, more than likely, if they wanted to put something larger on that, they'd have to come back to you to remove those lot lines.
Yeah, to do
with the
boundary
Subdivision plat.
That is correct.
Okay. Other questions?
All right, thank you.
And
No, you gotta ask if anybody in the audience wants.
anyone in the audience have concerns or would like to address the council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then, guys.
I'll make a motion to accept in the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hydrich.
The letter into the minutes.
Accept the letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay. Sherry?
An ordinance rezoning 2188, 2180, and 2172 Highway A from R1A Single Family Residential to M2 Heavy Industrial in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Questions?
And questions again, guys, by the council. No questions? All right.
Second reading.
Second reading, please, Sherry.
An ordinance rezoning 2188, 2180, and 2172 Highway A from R1A Single Family Residential to M2 Heavy Industrial in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Okay, by your votes, you approve the ordinance.
Special use permit, 14 West Main Street.
All right. Your last public hearing tonight is coming in a little after the wire, but we are going to make sure it's fully compliant. The request here at 14 West Main is for the new Andy's Produce. The grocery store use is obviously permitted use in the C3 district. Obviously here, all this in our downtown is C3. We did, after discussions, actually it came out at Historic Preservation, that they did have planned to have the kind of nursery side use of it with the outdoor sales. And in our city code, under the C3 district, it's pretty specific that nursery specifically has to get a special use permit in order to be placed there. And so they're going through this step to make sure they can have the, sorry, that's an old picture, have the outdoor sales of nursery items. So actually, I apologize, I thought I had updated this, but if anyone's been by this weekend, you can see this storage area has actually changed. It's perpendicular to Main Street instead here, so it's along this area. And the only request at Planning and Zoning voted unanimously in favor of it. The only request that they had was to amend the approval to make sure that in the ordinance it's stated that there is access between these two parking lots. With the storage, they have it closed off right here. And the fire department requested, Commissioner Borgman requested that they do have access through here.
Not really a fire lane.
Correct.
Just access, you know. And if I can butt in, Sal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did go down, I was down there first thing Saturday morning talking with Cheryl and her future bride, or groom, I'm sorry. And I explained to them again, and they did not, they moved those pallets that John was concerned about. So everything was already moved and everything that they were requested to do, so.
So I apologize. They had updated it that night. I must have saved it upstairs, but not on the network drive. But what P&Z saw had parking stalls going all the way through here. And so then there was through access here and then access that you'd have to back out of. And P&Z just wanted that through access to continue so you could go from Second and wrap around back to Jefferson if needed.
And they basically had, on that last parking stall, they basically had a couple, 2 or 3 pallets of dirt or whatever they're sitting there, and that's what Mr. Boardman was concerned about. So, like I say, I kind of went over and I went down there after our P&Z meeting and explained to them as well that evening, and they had everything moved, so they're already in, already did what they were asked. Just FYI.
Yep. So obviously, staff has no issue with the use itself. It's compatible with downtown. It's a retail use. Good foot traffic for Main Street, which is encouraged by our downtown guidelines. So obviously, passed at P&Z as well.
Yeah, what an asset already.
Yeah. Other comments from the council? Public? Your turn? Okay.
Cheryl, you want to say anything?
No, she don't.
It's a good thing, Cheryl. Welcome to Washington.
Yeah, it's awesome down there. It really looks great.
Looks good. Everything.
I agree. Okay, I'll accept a motion then, so
I'll
we
make
can.
that motion.
Hydrich? Second. Second by Hopemeyer. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. By your vote, special use permit can be read and accepted into the meeting, or into the minutes.
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 14 West Main Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Hydrich.
Introduced by Hydrich. Second reading.
Any comments or questions?
Any more comments or questions, guys? Let Sherry read it again. Okay?
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 14 West Main Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Hopemeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. We now have a downtown anchor.
Go and load some cantaloupes.
Yeah, yeah.
Cheryl, good luck. Thank you. You'll do fine.
Citizens' comments?
Thank you for being here.
Any citizens that would like to step up to the mic and have anything to say? Okay?
Report of department heads?
Okay, council. I apologize for not getting this on the agenda. The bids for the hangars actually came in right when the agenda was being set. I did send you all I tried to make it as concise as I possibly could with the different options, and I understand it is not concise. But we went out to bid for 8 hangars over at the airport as the base bid, with an additive alternate of 2 to make it 10, and then a second additive alternate to make it 12. The federal funding available for those hangars, and it's 90-10 funding, so you have to pay 10% of whatever dollars that the Fed allocates towards you, is $1,587,000 or $1,587,318. The low bid came in at approximately 1.9 million. So you see there's a shortage there of 470,000. Should we move forward with constructing those 8 hangars, you need to come up with that $470,000. The good news with that is in the capital improvement sales tax, we did earmark in 2018 $1.5 million over the course of those 8 years for airport improvements. So you have the dollars available to do that. Just doing that quick, easy math, you'd have about $1 million if you chose, $1 million left over if you chose to construct the 8 hangars. Then you could see, in that email, you also see that the additive alternate of 10 hangars would be $2.2 million. That means you'd have to come up with $784,000 of our own capital improvement sales tax money to build 10 hangars. 12 hangars would cost $2.5 million. You'd have to spend $1 million of your $1.5. My point with telling you those things is you can afford to build all 12 hangars should you choose to do so. However, there is another opportunity that came about approximately a month, 2 months ago. The federal government, through their budgeting process, we reached out to them on some just additional airport projects in the future. And basically, we requested $6.8 million to do a runway extension. It would be a 500-foot runway extension, 50-foot width extension. It would allow for a higher class of planes, basically jets. So your airport would be equivalent to Spirit of St. Louis. From that, the House of Representatives has already passed $3 million of the $6.8 that we've requested. That's really good stuff. It has to go to the Senate yet to get approved. The Senate has the ability to strike all that, strike a portion of it, or add to it should they choose. My guess is we're probably going to get $3 million of the $6.8 requested. So you have a choice coming up then in the next year or two, is where do you come up with the additional $3.8 to build this runway extension? Okay, you're short. 40, you're 60% short. So staff's recommendation with these hangars is to try to keep, to build the minimum, the 8, to chip away at that, to spend the 1.587 million that that MoDOT has already allocated to us to do the base bid, and then hold on to that $1 million to get us 33% closer to building this runway extension. Now, as you're aware, we still have to come up with $2.8 million in the future, but that's a future problem that we'll have to deal with should we be awarded those dollars. I do not think, we met with the airport board on Friday. We were all in agreement, staff was in agreement with the airport board, to keep as much money in the piggy bank as we possibly could so we could pivot quickly should that runway extension project be realized. This is a big opportunity, and I think having those dollars in that bank account is very, very important. The possibility in the future would be we could leverage some additional MoDOT money to pay for that runway extension. We're going to look at hangar rents when these new ones get constructed, because we do have a pretty substantial waiting list. Currently, we may look at doing bids every time a hangar becomes available, actually send it out to the market and let the market choose what the price is as a way to generate revenue. The concept of getting larger planes in here sells more fuel, which is your revenue source at the airport. So our recommendation at the next council meeting would be to construct 8 hangars, spending approximately $500,000 of your capital improvement sales tax, with, again, $1.6 million of that coming from MoDOT and the federal government. Do you have any questions?
So if we get the runway money, is there a time period we have to spend it?
I don't know. I just do not know.
We'll have to wait and see.
So we would have to, figure out how to come up with the
Yeah.
rest.
We would have to figure that out when the time comes and see how much we have to come up with.
The whole thing with the board was that we build the 8 hangars because hangars is nice, we'll have a list all the time, but if we get a bigger runway and bigger, it just means bigger industry, more
opportunity.
more traffic, more opportunity, which hangars don't give us that type of opportunity that extension on a runway or width of a runway would give us. So that's why the board going towards the 8 hangars instead of add more. So that's
I think at a time like this, we need to hold on to as much as that hard cash as we can, because these opportunities are coming out of thin air, and we just need to be prepared to jump on them when they come in. You also have the ability to not approve the bids at all, but then again, understand that you're giving up the $1.6 million that MoDOT already has allocated to you, which again, I do not think is wise. So I think you need to construct the bare minimum and then hold on to much of that cash as you possibly can.
And John, of that 1.6, if you can just remind the council or whatever, that a portion of that was due to the fact of St. Clair Airport closing, that those funds were all reallocated towards Washington Airport.
Correct. Yeah, we got, I'm going to top of my head here, but I think there was about 600,000 was basically earmarked for the city of Washington due to St. Clair Airport closing. Give you some other numbers just on the bids alone, just the bidding market is. The construction of this was 1.7. There's some engineering and Ameren, that's where the 1.9 comes in. But we built 12 hangars about 10 years ago, 12 hangars for $1 million. Now we can only build 8 for 1.7. So it just gives you a feel for what the market is right now. And again, with the infrastructure packages that are still hitting the ground, we do not foresee that price coming down at all. So we do think it's wise to move forward with the 8 and get something constructed. So, and again, we won't have that contract ready for you all. The apparent low bidder is Kurt Understall, or KJU out of Washington, Missouri, was the apparent low bidder. So we'll have that.
John, just for clarification, because I thought I heard a number that wasn't correct, but total construction on the low bid was 2.2?
No, total construction low bid is 1.9 million.
1.9.
Correct.
Okay.
The low bid was 1.7, but there's Ameren costs
Right.
and engineering costs outside of that actual bid. So what I'm saying, total construction's 1.9.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a little confusing, but hopefully my summary was a little easier to understand than me explaining it to you. So I don't need any action tonight other than,
Questions?
If not, we'll have, we're prepared to have an ordinance for you to go ahead and award that contract at your first meeting in August.
John, real quick.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dwight, go ahead. Why does Ameren come into factor on this?
Because we have to, right now, we have to run service lines from the actual poles themselves, transformers, those type of things, to feed electricity to them. So they come into play.
Extend.
Yeah, $30,000.
Wouldn't that be through a contractor, or why are we dealing with Ameren? I don't understand, that's all.
He's just,
It's just a
that's part of the total cost.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we can roll that into the contract as a change order, but that's a separate cost. Typically, we pay for that separately.
okay.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not the
Okay.
greatest answer, but yeah, it was not included in that. I mean, it's conduit and then some wiring that Ameren pulls, basically. And then a couple poles get set, those type of things. So kind of third-party utility cost. Another funding opportunity that we're looking into too, while we're still talking about this, is the Spirit of St. Louis. What they do in some of their property is they actually lease the ground underneath hangars, and then they allow the private sector to construct the hangars to their specifications and connect to their taxiways. So they own the private entity, John's flight class, owns the building, and then I rent that from the actual city itself. So that's another way that we could maybe look at generating revenue and just generating traffic through the airport, which then we sell fuel, which is our bread and butter. So just give you some outside the box thinking to kind of bridge
Well,
this
the
gap.
next thing, and John hinted on it earlier, is that we will be taking a look at all the hangar rents and what's the most efficient way to go ahead and get the most that we can out of those hangar rents. Part of that might be, and one of the things we've discussed is just going to the highest bidder, putting them out for bid, seeing rather than setting an established rate, which is what we've historically done.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to rent a hangar like in the 8 bays, and let's just say Darren and I are neighbors, we pay the same thing. A concept that we have is that if Darren and I are neighbors and I leave and then Sal wants to bid on it, his rent may be whatever he bids it, might be a lot higher than what Darren's old rent was. But again, we don't care, because if you want it, you pay for it. It's about as American as it gets, so. That's right. Tell me I'm wrong.
Other questions, you guys, about this? More discussion? Guys, this is exciting. This means a prospective company, would have the ability anywhere in the continental United States to come in here in the morning, bring 10 or 12 people, have a meeting, and then leave and be home in time for supper almost. That's pretty cool.
Ordinances, resolutions. An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from Midwest Elevator for the troubleshooting and repair of man lifts at the Walnut Street Lift Station and Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Homebuyer.
Introduced by Hopemeyer.
Good evening, Council. What we have before us is a proposal from Midwest Elevator to come in and bring our Walnut Street Lift Station up to operational standards. Right now, it is down, and what it is, it's a man lift that allows our employees to go down to the bottom of the station, actually work on the pumps, and then be able to come back out. It is currently down, so we need to have somebody come in and actually get it up and running. And then the second step is to actually bring it up to current code standards. And then the third step is to go into a maintenance agreement to bring it into the permanent code standards of the new fire codes of the state. So that's what we have. I went out for 2 bids. I asked for a bunch of them, but I found 2 elevator companies that was willing to do it. One was TKE, which was previously ThyssenKrupp, and the other one was Midwest. Midwest actually came in with a lower bid on the 2 proposals for the bringing the stations up to standard and then getting them ready. And then on the maintenance program side of it, they actually gave us a proposal to send every quarter 2 men to come in, or 2 personnel to come in and actually inspect the elevators every quarter to make sure that they are in maintenance purposes and then safety standards and everything else, which is part of a requirement that is now part of the elevator requirements. So that's what it is. ThyssenKrupp our TKE did come in with a maintenance proposal, but their maintenance proposal was to just inspect the elevators once a year and then only send 1 person if we needed any work done to it. So to me, that wasn't in the best interest of the city and safety and everything else. And it really didn't comply with the requirements of the federal the state standards. So that's what we have in front of us. So that will be actually Walnut Street and the wastewater treatment plant. What will happen is once we make this agreement, they'll come and get everything going, and then we will have to do an inspection immediately because it's due in this month. So they will inspect both Walnut Street and the treatment plant, and we'll be up to standards, and then we'll just move forward from there. So, and I apologize, I did not put in that there's funds in it. I forgot it on my letter, but we do have funds and other contracted services to cover this year, and then next year's maintenances will roll into the budget for next year and then thereon. So.
That's separate from, let's say, a regular passenger elevator, is that different?
Yes, because like this one here in the City Hall, it's a hydraulic elevator, so it's a completely different package. These are special use elevators, so you have chains and gears and safety catches and switches, totally different system than like what's here, so that's why it's hard to find somebody to work on them. So.
And we didn't have a maintenance agreement currently.
No, we should have. This rule has been in effect since 2004 from the state. The previous fire marshal just felt that it wasn't necessary, I guess. Now we have a new fire marshal that's in charge of all this, and he has brought it out that, yes, now we will follow it, and now we have to follow it. So this is where all this came to play. I've been doing this for 22 years. These lifts have been here for 22 years. Never had to worry about it till now. So
You answered my next question, is why we waited this long, but okay.
there you go. That's why. Not that we wanted to, we as in the city, we didn't know about it because nobody ever brought it to our attention until we failed. And one of the reasons why we failed was because we don't have what's called an MPC, maintenance protocol, whatever. But anyway, we didn't have that. So that's one of the reasons why we failed. So.
Okay.
Any questions?
Somebody
Okay.
introduce it?
Yes. Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from Midwest Elevator for the troubleshooting and repair of manned lifts at the Walnut Street Lift Station and Wastewater Treatment Plant. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance.
Thank you, Council.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the maintenance agreement from Midwest Elevator for the quarterly preventative maintenance agreement of manned lifts at the Walnut Street Lift Station and Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Homebuyer. Any more discussion? All right. Read it again.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the maintenance agreement from Midwest Elevator for the quarterly preventative maintenance agreement of manned lifts at the Walnut Street Lift Station and Wastewater Treatment Plant. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yeah.
Briggs?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance passes.
An ordinance accepting the proposal for engineering design services for the Rabbit Trail Extension Project and Wonderlick Surveying and Engineering, Inc., and amend the 2022 budget.
Heidrich.
Introduced by Heidrich.
Okay, good evening again, council. Within your packet, you could clearly see there's an engineering service contract with Wonderlick Survey and Engineering. Basically, this is the extension of Rabbit Trail from its current dead-end location to Beaker Road. This will be done in conjunction with the development to the west. It's a 36-plus lot subdivision going in. It's being graded right now. This work, this is on your comprehensive plan. Again, it checks that box. It is something, a connection that's been, that basically the city's kind of been after for quite some time. This is also in conjunction with the current plan with Rabbit Trail to construct the east-west connection just north of the senior center or senior living center as well. Cochran is currently designing that one for us, and they're about 30% through design. So the idea here is those two connections under comp plan would provide a secondary access into the Phoenix Center development from the residential as a way to reduce some of the traffic at the Rabbit Trail Phoenix Center Drive 100 intersection. At the last council meeting, as you all do recall, we did get the approval for you to apply for a CMAQ grant at that intersection at a future date, which we'll be doing that this fall. So again, this is the first step to get this done. It would also spur the development to the west of Rabbit Trail, and it appears there might be 20-plus residential lots in that general area as well. So with this, the design most likely will be done here in the next couple months. It'll move pretty quick because the same engineer doing the roadway work here is also the one for the developer. So we'll have some good coordination documents. I'm pretty sure it's probably already been surveyed, so it could move pretty quick. So we are budgeting that construction in next year's budget as well, that you will see as we move into October.
How wide is that road, John?
It's 40 foot wide, 40 foot wide. It will have a sidewalk on the west side that we, part of this, which is an amenity, we think, to the residential. We'll have to determine, do we want to extend that sidewalk to this new bridge, this east-west bridge that Cochran's designing, as a way to get up to Phoenix Park. So there's an overall sidewalk plan / package to kind of go along with the general concept to connect subdivisions and somewhat communities to our park system and everything else. So that's kind of the goal. Not sidewalks in every development, but sidewalks where people can travel and kind of get around. So that's a pretty big amenity, we believe.
Especially for collectors of major routes.
Yeah. There will be no driveways off of this as well, which again is one of our goals for traffic management.
Will there be a off-street, will streets come off of this road in the future?
Yeah. So to the west in the existing development, like I said, I don't have a map, but
There's a map.
Gosh, I can't
in the
remember.
packet.
I got the map here.
They got a map in the packet.
Yeah,
7C.
that street will connect over to provide a secondary access to that one.
How about the other side?
The other side, there will be cul-de-sacs, it appears, and maybe one stub street as well.
All right.
And again, those will face those cul-de-sac and stub streets rather than face the actual rabbit trail,
Okay.
which is part of what we need to be looking at on street connections is driveway accesses, so rabbit trail doesn't end up the way that it is.
Sounds good.
Other discussion? Okay.
An ordinance accepting the proposal for engineering design services for the Rabbit Trail Extension project with Wunderlich Surveying and Engineering, Inc., and amend the 2022 budget. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance C is passed.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the APM subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Holtmeyer. Take it away, Sal.
This one, so.
Yep, that one, thank you. All right, so this is a request for a simple boundary adjustment. This is Fifth and Clay. I believe this used to be a television store.
Grenham's, or-
Yeah, so I'm brought up today. And then there's a residence here to the rear. Both these properties are actually zoned C1, neighborhood commercial, light commercial. However, this home has been occupied as a single family and can continue to do so. What they're requesting to do, the applicant is wishing to basically give the backyard of this property to the commercial property on Fifth. So that's what you see here, cutting that off. And I believe the plan is to renovate this for second-story apartments and then a parking in the rear.
Is that the old Kibler building?
I don't know.
RKTV.
Or KTV.
Yes, yeah. So, pretty straightforward, but with the zoning, I mean, there's no minimum lot sizes here, but if this even were our R1B, it's 8,000 square feet on the lot they're leaving, which is fine, and obviously this lot's getting larger, so recommend approval.
More questions or discussions, you guys? Okay, Sherry?
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the APM subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance C passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Robert H. and Rosemary Sang.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Homebuyer.
Okay, the next 30 minutes of your life will be dedicated to temporary construction easements. So it references the 3rd Street STP project, which repaves, reconstructs curb and gutter and sidewalks from 3rd Street from Jefferson to Highway 47. These are the property owners that have signed up to give us that temporary construction easement. What this really is, all this is the right-of-ways are built from right-of-way boundary line and right-of-way boundary line. So in order to demo the curb or the sidewalk, to pour a new sidewalk, we have to basically get these little slivers of ground, and I'm talking like literally a couple feet, with all these property owners to basically set a concrete form. Unfortunately, these are the ones that have agreed to this. We have 15 pending. We have 3 that are no's. Flat out, they will not work with us on this. So I have some more phone calls next week to get with them to figure it out. We do have a plan to essentially work around the no's should that come to fruition. We do not want that to happen. But essentially, we can saw cut the concrete that's there about a foot away from the outside edge of it and then use that as our back concrete form. So you'll have a foot that's old, just so we don't touch your property, and then we'll build everything else in. I do not.
From the curve, a foot from the back of the curve.
A foot from the back of the sidewalk, the property side of the sidewalk. So I do not want that to happen, but
How many holdouts you got?
I got 3,
Okay.
and I will be talking with you.
Yep.
So, but again, I have a couple phone calls to make with them yet to try to just explain to them that that's the plan. I mean, it's their choice, not necessarily ours. So ideally, we would get these temporary construction easements move off life. It is temporary. We're not taking anyone's property. We're just needing the room to build something new for them. It's their tax dollars, not ours, and we're trying to spend it as efficiently and quickly as possible. So this is the next 30 minutes of your life.
Okay. Introduced by Holtmeyer. Sherry, first
Them all,
one.
Joe? You gonna do some all?
I can.
Okay. We gotta streamline this. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Yep.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Robert H. and Rosemary Sang. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yeah.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance E passes. Next one.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Ann M. Bolzenius.
Holtmeyer.
Holtmeyer introduced.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Ann M. Bolzenius. Patke, Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance F passes. Sherry?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Robert Lewis.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Robert Lewis. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yep.
By your vote, ordinance G passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Christian Science Society.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Christian Science Society. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer, Coulter.
Yep.
By your vote, ordinance H passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Paley Family Revocable Living Trust.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Paley Family Revocable Living Trust. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer, Coulter.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance I passes. You need a drink of water, take one, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cowboys Holdings LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cowboys Holdings LLC. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance J passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cowboys Holdings LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cowboys Holdings LLC. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Ordinance K passes by your vote.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Tyrone and Diane Strouser.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Tyrone and Diane Strouser. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Lima passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Charles F. and Lisa Darling.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Charles F. and Lisa Darling. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance M passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Eugene Andrew Mills.
Holtmeyer.
Reed.
Introduced by
Too late.
Holtmeyer.
Holtmeyer.
Slow.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Eugene Andrew Mills. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance November passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sonia M. Jones.
Reed.
Introduced by Reed.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sonia M. Jones. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Oscar passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Gina M. Mayer.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Gina M. Mayer. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Papa passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Washington School District.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Washington School District. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Quebec passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Joseph M. Caldebunder.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Joseph M. Caldebunder. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Romeo passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and ENS Rental Properties LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and ENS Rental Properties LLC. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
Ordinance Sierra passes by your vote.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Phyllis A. Reed.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Phyllis A. Reed. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Tango passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Keith F. Campschrader.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer. Sorry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Keith F. Campschrader. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Uniform passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Charles F. Schrafer.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Sorry.
It's
An
okay.
ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Charles F. Schrieffer. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Victor passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and DNL Enterprises LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and DNL Enterprises LLC. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Whiskey passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Wishing Machine LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
The ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Wishing Machine LLC. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance X-ray passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sarah A. Turner.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sarah A. Turner. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Yankee passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Thomas and Stephanie Johnson.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Thomas and Stephanie Johnson. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Zulu passes.
Did you want to say something, Mark, before I read this one?
Yeah, the next one indicates it's Martin and Ruth Rudloff. It's actually Martin and Virginia Rudloff. Sorry.
Jenny, to those that know her.
Yeah, well,
It's my treasurer.
on a first-name basis.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Martin D. and Virginia M. Rudolph.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Martin D. and Virginia M. Rudolph. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Alpha Alpha passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Frank N. Wood and Ruth A. Wood.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Frank N. Wood and Ruth A. Wood. Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Bravo Bravo passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and James and Katie L. Camper.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and James and Katie L. Camper. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Charlie Charlie passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Joshua and Brittany Pruitt.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Joshua and Brittany Pruitt. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Delta Delta passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Boley Grading LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Boley Grading LLC. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Ordinance EE passed by your vote.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Daniel and Courtney Regal.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Danielle and Courtney Regal. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Fox Fox passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Dylan F. Bellew.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Dylan F. Bellew. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance GG passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Richard and Christine Schrader.
Holtmeyer.
Again, introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Richard and Christine Schrader. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance Hotel Hotel passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Virginia E. Greeno.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Virginia E. Greeno. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance India India passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Eleanor C. and John H. Grinker.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Eleanor C. and John H. Grinker. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer, Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Juliet Juliet passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Ashley Christine Smith and Levi Levius Ball.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Ashley Christine Smith and Levi Levius Ball. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance Kilo Kilo passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Mercy Hospitals East Communities.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an easement deed by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Mercy Hospitals East Communities. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Yay.
Congratulations.
By your vote, ordinance Lima Lima passes.
Did you time me?
No, I didn't.
Lima.
Exactly 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
You want to start over? We can.
That was good.
That was real good.
I didn't get a second one.
Because you're not fast enough, Reed. That's all there is to it.
Is that why I wore a helmet?
Wow.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, River Place Subdivision, Plat 2.
Sherry's like, we're not slowing down now.
Yeah, let's keep this train rolling.
Yeah.
All right. On your agenda tonight is the approval of a plat for the River Place subdivision. This is at the intersection of, back up here, Main and Olive. So you can see here just east of the Rhine River development, the old Franklin County Recycle Center. And so there's a couple plats here because it's been updated, but here's the final one that went to P&Z last week. You can see there are 6 townhomes that will be facing Main Street. There is a common ground ingress egress easement to the back and a common ground lot, as well as access to the attorney's office and adjacent vacant land to the north on Front Street, so they have access to this alleyway common ground. It's not technically an alley because it's not public, but they have access to the rear here. This is less than 150 feet, so there's no need for an approved fire turnaround. They have fire access, obviously, with Main and Olive. And then, if you remember a few months back, we did approve a code amendment that requires anything in the downtown district that has 0 lot line on an intersection to get a special use permit. In this case, they will not need a special use permit because you can see they're constructing this building on the corner outside of the site triangle. See, this corner is actually going to remain open, so there's no need for a special use permit in this case. And once this plat is approved, they can move forward with construction. There is a performance agreement as well on this. Obviously, road is already there, but they did have to extend water, and so that's why there's a performance bond for, I think, $20,000 and some change for the water and sewer lines to be extended. So, P&Z voted in favor of it unanimously, and staff also recommends approval.
Andy, what kind of retaining wall are you gonna have behind there?
Good evening, Andy Understall, Front Street Development. I guess actually this is Washmo Main Street Development, but once I purchased this property from the attorneys there, Joe, there'll be a retaining wall, just to be a concrete poured retaining wall stamp, similar to the one that's behind the buildings on the east side of Market. Over there, so it's going to be, it just runs along the property. We're also extending the water and sewer lines under that wall up to the Blackman property for future, expansion of, of that property. It would be simpler to access it, since it's already there. So we worked that out with them. And other than that, there's pretty similar to what we built at Main and Market. They're just 2-story units. You'll come around the back. There'll be a 2-car garage in the rear. The lot furthest to the east, to the west has that larger lot that has a 3-car garage, like a 4-bedroom. It's actually a little bigger than what we normally build. That's like 3,400 square foot, 4-bedroom unit. And then the lot all the way to the west is a little different with the retaining wall and stuff like that. It has a garage. That one does have a garage that faces Main Street. And it could be a 2-family if they wanted it, So again, it's about 2,400 square foot on that one. But the rest of them are all up to 2,200 square foot units. So
Be nice.
yeah, so there'll be 2 stories in the front, and then like I say, come around the back with the garage. So
They all face to the south, or?
yeah, they all face south. Yeah. And then with the street easement in there, it gives the attorneys a spot to get to that lot. And there's a one open lot there between the winery and their office there that also would have access.
2-story?
Yeah, 2-story. Mm-hmm.
So they will have a deck on the back?
They'll have like a built-in porch on the back. The view's not, 100% there of the river. You'll have some peaks of the river there around the, depending what they build on that other lot someday. So. But, yep, so.
Andy, the plan doesn't show sidewalks.
Yeah, well, we're working with John on that, and talking about what we're gonna do with the street there, possibility. We're gonna get together on that. We'll have to pour some sidewalks there, but also maybe if the street, I don't know, John, maybe John comment on
Yeah.
that. I mentioned it to him because
Yeah, we were going to meet, Andy asked me to meet down there this weekend, and we did notice that it does not have sidewalks. I mean, there's nothing in the code that requires a sidewalk, but we could also look at, that is kind of narrow through there as well. And Borgia kind of uses it to pick up kids and those type of
Yeah.
things. So there's other considerations that go into it. I do believe at a minimum, sidewalks need to be as part of this, whether who pays for that and who gets that done, that's maybe a separate discussion. But I think it has to be done in conjunction even maybe with a roadway widening project as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a huge, well, it's not going to be a huge undertaking, and it would be good to have it all done at the same time with equipment, things like that.
Right, yeah, it'd be nice just probably to widen the street, and then it would leave some off-street parking there, on-street parking, in front of the units, because with the way people line up for the pickup for the school and stuff like that, they're kind of out in the road there, and it kind of limits that street to one lane almost, typically, so you gotta kind of dodge in and out a little bit, so, like I said, I requested a meeting with John down there, we'll take a look at it and come up with a plan for you guys. So, okay?
Sounds good, thanks, Andy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, need a motion to accept the preliminary and into the minutes.
Make a motion.
Motion by Homebuyer,
Second.
second by Coulter.
Any discussion?
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, by your vote, 8A is approved.
An ordinance approving the final plat of River Place Subdivision Plat 2 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Hopemeyer.
Any discussion?
Any more discussion? Okay, take it away, Sherry.
An ordinance approving the final plat of River Place Subdivision Plat 2 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yeah.
Briggs,
Yes.
Hydrich, Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Motion passes by your vote.
I apologize, Council. I did forget to tell you that there's a performance contract attached to that of
Yes.
$21,933 for the sewer and water, which I'm sorry, but that's part of that approval of final plat.
You're fired.
Mayor's report.
Okay.
Real quick, gang, thanks for you guys, everybody, especially you, Sherry, for cranking those things out so quickly.
Thank you.
Lots of good stuff happening. We were getting naysayers, and there's 3 or 4 or 5 naysayers that didn't want to have their sidewalks redone on 3rd Street. And again, I ask everybody not to focus on those people. I've had several phone calls this week. Why are we doing this? Why do you have to do that? Griping, and I'm sure you guys do also. Please don't focus on those, because there's too much stuff going on, too much good stuff. I don't want to say, well, the way I'll phrase it is, we've got COVID money, we've got ARPA funds, the infrastructure bill is passed, so, us haggling over how we're going to spend this money, which we're probably never going to see again at the same amount of time. I'd like you guys to focus on that and how good and unusual that is, and let's get the best discussion we can have, all the information that you guys can muster, and you can get it right, okay? That's my soapbox.
City Administrator's report.
We will be meeting with a group on the HVAC over at the library. Finally been able to go ahead and schedule a meeting with them. We hope to negotiate a contract. The earliest we could have that to you would be your first meeting in August. And so we did have, I think I said at the last meeting, that council meeting, we had a committee that we had formed. Joe, the mayor, sat on it, but we also had representatives from the library, and John Wayne and myself all sat on that and reviewed qualification statements that we received at that time. So hopefully we'll have more to report to you at the first meeting in August. Secondly, we are in the midst of budget, so the department heads, most of them have gotten their department budgets in. Again, if there's anything that you'd like to see included in the budget, we'll have a workshop to discuss what we're proposing in capital. Part of the big thing that we're going to have to move forward with are some improvements, not only here to City Hall, but also to the City Auditorium, the old pool house out there at the Parks System, and moving their offices in that location. We also have some small renovations, I would say minor in compared to the whole scheme, out at Public Works. So we are looking at possibly putting together a larger bid package, something that could be phased in over 1 to 2 years, so that it's not something we could go ahead and attract a wide range of bidders, so that the city gets the best price. And so we'll be looking at probably putting a committee together for that as well. So some of that will be improvements here at City Hall and access to City Hall, where we might consider moving where we make payments to one location, so that you don't have second one on the finance floor, pick up here down in engineering, et cetera. One location that would also help with some security issues throughout the building as well. So all of those things are to be considered, but we'll be giving you more information in the near future. I do have a few updated items for you in executive session.
Council comments?
Darren, the money you're talking about in the auditorium and pool house is budgeted in capital improvement sales
We
tax.
do have funds in the capital improvement sales
There's
tax. for
others-
those, correct.
There are others also, you're saying?
Yes.
And we have the possibility of historical grants, is why we pushed that back, right?
We
Sal?
did. I don't know that we're going to be successful at getting any grants. However, due to the fact of, we had some discussions with the state historic preservation. I don't know that it's worth us to go ahead and get it registered on the National Register. Not that we may still not go ahead and do it, but if it's going to cost us some money, we got to look at that.
Sure.
See if it's to our benefit. But you do have for two major items, specifically for the auditorium that we had, was for insulation of the roof, which is going to be on the outside, so as not to detract away from the ceiling, architectural ceiling that's in there today, and also obviously updating the HVAC system. So,
That place gets used. I was in there today and the kids are playing kickball and
during the summer, we do get that for the summer camp. They're users of the building, so.
City Attorney's report, public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Patke?
Sure.
Reed?
You bet.
Briggs?
Yes.
Idrich? Holtmeyer? Coulter?
Yes.
by your vote,